We are launching a full investigation into the tragic events that occurred here.
Is there a suspect in custody? Are you issuing a public warning?
We cannot comment further.
They said the door was locked from the inside. That detail mattered. It mattered because it ended the questions before they even began. A locked door meant no intruder, no struggle, no escape. It meant the story could be closed neatly, filed away, archived, forgotten. But rooms don't always tell the truth just because they're quiet. The boarding house stood at the edge of the town like it had something to hide. 3 floors, cracked white paint, a single hallway that smelled of dust, boiled coffee, and old secrets. People passed it every day without looking twice. Until the morning room 317 didn't open. Mrs. Calder, the landlady, noticed it first. Breakfast trays were usually gone by 7. Room 317's tray sat untouched at 10. By noon, she knocked. No answer. By evening, the smell began. Not rot, not decay. Something colder, like air that had stopped moving. When the locksmith arrived, the hallway was full. Tenants stood barefoot in doorways. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else filmed. The locksmith hesitated. "This door," he said slowly, pressing his ear against it, "hasn't been opened since last night." The key turned, the lock clicked, and the door swung inward. The room was intact. The bed was made, the chair pushed in. The window shut tight. No sign of panic, no sign of violence, just absence. The man who rented the room, Elias Moore, was gone. No blood, no luggage, no shoes missing, and no other way out. Police arrived quickly. They always do when a mystery looks clean. They took notes, they took photos. They nodded to each other like the case was already solved. "Locked from the inside," one officer said. That phrase again. It floated through the room like a conclusion pretending to be a fact. Elias Moore was 32, quiet, paid rent early, worked nights at the ferry terminal, no family visits, no enemies anyone could name. His phone sat charging on the desk, still on, still logged in. No outgoing calls after 11:48 p.m., no messages sent, no signs of a goodbye. "People disappear," the sergeant said later. "Sometimes they just leave. But people don't leave their shoes. People don't leave wallets. And people don't vanish from sealed rooms without taking the air with them." The official report took 3 pages. Conclusion: no evidence of foul play. Possible voluntary departure. Door locked from the inside. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Because at 2:13 a.m., 3 hours after Elias was last seen alive, someone else had tried to open that door, and the lock remembered. The boarding house hallway camera was old. Low resolution. No sound, but it caught movement. A shadow stopping outside room 317. A hand reaching toward the handle, then freezing. Like whoever it was realized something too late. The door didn't open, but the shadow didn't leave right away either. It stayed, listening, waiting. No one noticed the footage for 6 months, because no one was supposed to look, and because if the door was truly locked from the inside, then someone else shouldn't have been there at all. The camera footage wasn't supposed to matter. It was old, grainy, forgotten in a dusty security office that no one entered unless a pipe burst or a tenant disappeared, which, until Elias Moore, had never happened. The officer who finally reviewed it wasn't assigned to the case. He was bored, and boredom is dangerous to lies. Officer Daniel Rourke had been working night shifts for 6 years, long enough to know when a case was wrapped too quickly, long enough to recognize the smell of convenience dressed up as certainty. Locked from the inside was his least favorite phrase. It sounded final, but it never was. The footage played at half speed. 11:47 p.m. Elias enters the hallway. He nods at the camera like he always does. Room 317. Door opens, door closes, normal. 11:52 p.m. Hallway empty. Then nothing. For hours. Until 2:13 a.m. A shadow bleeds into frame from the far end of the corridor. No face, no features, just movement. The figure stops directly in front of room 317. Stands there, not knocking, not pacing, waiting. Rourke leaned closer. The timestamp blinked. 2:14 a.m. 2:15 a.m. The shadow raised an arm. The door handle moved. Just slightly. Then it stopped. The arm froze mid-air. The shadow stepped back. And after 28 seconds, it turned and walked away. Rourke replayed it 3 times. Then 5. Then he zoomed in. The handle hadn't rattled. It had resisted. Like something on the other side had pushed back. That shouldn't have been possible. According to the report, Elias Moore was already gone. According to the report, the room was empty. According to the report, nothing and no one had been inside. So why did the handle stop? Rourke pulled the physical lock records. The building used a mechanical deadbolt with an internal latch, old-fashioned but precise. Every turn left microscopic wear patterns. Those patterns told stories if you knew how to read them. And the lock on room 317 had been turned twice that night, once at 11:49 p.m. and again at 2:13 a.m. from the inside. Rourke sat back. That wasn't a mistake. Locks don't lie. People do. He requested the original crime scene photos. They arrived incomplete. Missing angles, missing timestamps, missing the bathroom entirely. Strange omission. He visited the boarding house the next morning. Mrs. Calder didn't recognize him. That bothered him. She remembered everyone. Did anyone have access to a master key? He asked. She hesitated. Just a breath. Only maintenance, she said. And the owner. The owner hadn't been mentioned in the report. Room 317 had been repainted. Fresh white, too fresh. The smell burned the nose. Paint hides more than stains. Rourke stood in the bathroom. Small, windowless. The mirror had been replaced. The old one was gone. He tapped the tiles. One sounded hollow. He pried gently, and behind it, a narrow metal vent, too small for a body, but big enough for a voice. That's when he noticed the scratches. Faint, vertical, like fingernails dragged slowly down metal, from the inside. Elias Moore hadn't left. He had been prevented. Rourke filed a supplemental report. It was rejected, within an hour. Case closed, the note said. No explanation, no discussion. That night, Rourke received an anonymous email. No sender name, no signature. Just a subject line. The door wasn't locked to keep him in. Attached was a photo. Taken from inside room 317, facing the door. The latch was engaged, and beneath it, a smear. Not blood, something darker, like oil, or fingerprints wiped too many times. And written on the door frame, barely visible, "Help doesn't open locks." The next day, the board of the police department called Officer Rourke into a small conference room. The kind of room that looks neutral, but feels like a trap. A glass wall, a table, 3 chairs, 2 empty, 1 occupied by the chief. The chief didn't look up when Rourke entered. He simply said, "You're making waves." Rourke sat anyway. He was tired of sitting politely while people erased reality. "I'm just asking questions," Rourke said. The chief finally looked at him. His eyes were flat. "Questions are expensive," he said, "and you're spending other people's money." Rourke stared. The chief continued, "Mr. Moore's disappearance is not a police matter anymore." Rourke waited. He didn't like the tone. The chief leaned forward. Someone higher up wants this closed, and you are not authorized to keep digging. Rourke didn't respond. He didn't need to. The message was clear: stop or disappear. When he returned to his desk, the anonymous email was waiting. Another attachment, another message. This one was a recording, a voice, not distorted, clear, human. A man speaking softly. "I'm not missing," the voice said. "I'm trapped." The recording was only 30 seconds. The voice said, "They don't want you to find me. They don't want anyone to know what room 317 really is." Then the sound of the latch turning. A quiet click. Then silence. Rourke listened again. He noticed a sound underneath the silence. A faint hum. Like electricity or a machine. The building was old. It shouldn't hum unless something was running inside it. He returned to the boarding house after hours. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't want to be stopped. The lights in the hallway were dim. The air was heavy. The building felt alive, like it was waiting. He reached room 317. The door looked ordinary, but the handle was cold. He placed his hand on it and felt something. Not physical, a pressure, like the room was pushing back. He stepped away. The hair on his arms rose. He wasn't afraid, not yet, but he was aware. He noticed the window. It wasn't locked, but the latch was painted over. Someone had sealed it. Why? Rourke moved to the window. He pried the paint with a knife. The latch gave. He opened it. Cold air rushed in. A smell of salt. Like the sea. The boarding house wasn't near the ocean, but the smell was there, as if the room had been breathing it. Then he saw the shadow, in the corner. Not a person, not a shape, but a dark stain on the wall, like a shadow that had been pressed into paint. Rourke stepped closer. His breath caught, because it wasn't just a stain, it was a shape, a silhouette of a man, hands raised, as if he had been pushed against the wall. His fingers splayed. The outline was too detailed, too perfect, like a real body had been pressed there and left behind. Rourke stepped back. His mind tried to make sense of it, but it wouldn't. He reached for his phone. He wanted to take a photo, but the phone didn't work. No signal, no camera, nothing. The room seemed to swallow technology. He felt a sudden weight in his chest. Like the room didn't want to be recorded, he turned toward the door and saw a man standing in the hallway. Not a shadow, a man. Tall, calm, wearing a uniform that didn't match the building. No badge, no name, just a dark coat. His face was hidden by the dim light, but his presence was undeniable. He looked at Rourke, not with anger, with certainty, as if he expected him. "You shouldn't be here," the man said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. Rourke swallowed. "I'm here because a man is missing," he said. The man's eyes didn't change. "Elias Moore isn't missing," he said. "He's been taken." Rourke felt the words settle in his stomach. Taken. Not vanished. Not dead. Taken. "By who?" Rourke asked. The man didn't answer. He stepped forward, and in the dim light, Rourke saw the badge. Not a police badge. Not a government badge. A symbol. A circle. A line. A small mark that looked like a keyhole. The man held up a hand. "Leave," he said. Rourke didn't move. He wasn't sure why. He felt like the room had him, like the building was watching. The man continued. "You can't save him." Rourke felt a strange calm, like the truth was about to arrive. He asked the question anyway. "Where is he?" The man's eyes hardened. He spoke slowly. "Inside the building," he said. "Not the room. The building itself." Rourke's mind spun. The building, the old boarding house, the lock, the hum, the shadow, the smell of the sea. He understood. The building wasn't just a building. It was a vessel, a trap, a machine. The man stepped closer. His voice softened. "You don't understand," he said. "Not yet." Rourke held his ground. The man raised his hand, and with a motion that was almost gentle, the door to room 317 clicked, locked itself from the inside. Rourke felt the pressure in the air shift, like a heartbeat. He realized something. The man had not locked the door. The building had. The room had. And it was alive. The man turned. He walked away, without looking back. The hallway lights flickered, then went out. Rourke stood alone in darkness, his phone still dead, his breath loud, his mind screaming. He left the building. He didn't run. He didn't need to. He just walked. Slowly. Like a man who had been told the truth and couldn't unhear it. Outside, the city was loud. Normal. People walked by. Cars honked. The world continued. As if nothing had happened. As if a man disappearing into a locked room was just another night. Rourke looked back at the boarding house. The windows were dark. The door closed. The building looked like it always had, but he knew it wasn't. It never had been. That night, he went home. He sat at his kitchen table. He stared at the wall, the hum from the boarding house still in his mind. He opened his laptop. He started researching. He searched for the boarding house's history, the owners, the previous tenants, the construction records, the old newspapers. He needed to know why the building was like this, and who had built it. He found something. A small article, buried in the archives, a story from 50 years ago. A man named Elias Moore, a wealthy businessman, disappeared, never found. No body, no explanation. The case was closed. The article ended with a sentence that made Rourke's blood go cold. The building where he lived has been condemned. But the building still stood, and it wasn't condemned. It was renovated, repainted, reopened. Rourke stared at the screen. He realized the truth. Elias Moore had never disappeared. He had been taken, and the building had been waiting for someone else to take his place. Rourke shut his laptop. He turned off the lights. He lay down. He didn't sleep. He didn't close his eyes. He listened. And in the silence, he heard it. A faint hum. From the street. From the building. From the world. As if something had awakened. Rourke woke before dawn. He didn't feel rested. He felt watched. He sat up. He checked the clock. 3:12 a.m. He stared at the ceiling. The hum was still there. Not loud. Just present. Like a low engine running somewhere far away. He stood. He walked to the window. Outside, the street was empty. The city was asleep. But he could feel something in the air. A pull. A call. Not a voice. A feeling. He went to the police station. The hallways were quiet. The night shift was ending. A few officers nodded at him. He nodded back. He didn't trust anyone. Not anymore. He went straight to the evidence room. He didn't have permission. He didn't care. He needed something. Anything. A clue. A proof. He searched. He opened the file for Elias Moore. The case was closed. But there were notes. A witness statement. A neighbor said they heard a sound like metal against metal. Another said they saw a man in a dark coat. A third said they saw nothing. The file was incomplete. But Rourke noticed something. The handwriting on the notes wasn't consistent. Different people had written different sections, but one line was repeated. In the same ink, the same pen, the same handwriting. A line that stood out. The building is alive. Rourke stared at it. The words didn't make sense, but they felt like a warning, a message, a confession. He scanned the file. There were no names attached to the note, no signature, no date, just the words. He felt the weight of them, like the building had reached through time. He took the file. He left the station. He went back to the boarding house. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't ask for permission. He walked in. The hallway was dim. The air was colder than before. He felt the building reacting. He felt it recognize him. The door to room 317 was closed. But the lock was different. The latch was new. It wasn't the old lock. It was modern, as if someone had replaced it. Someone had updated the trap. He touched the door. It was warm, not cold. Warm, as if the room was breathing. He pressed his ear against it. He listened. No sound. But the hum was stronger, like a heartbeat. He pulled out his keys. He tried the lock. It didn't budge. He tried again. Still locked. He stepped back. He looked at the door. He realized the truth. The room wasn't locked from the outside. It was locked from the inside. By the building. By whatever lived inside it. He put his hand on the door again. He closed his eyes. He felt the pressure. The pull. The building trying to keep him out. Or keep something in. He stepped away. He walked to the stairs. He went down. He walked out of the building. He stood on the sidewalk. He looked at the boarding house. The windows were dark. The building looked quiet. But Rourke knew it wasn't. It was waiting. He went to the one person he trusted. A woman named Mara. She worked in records. She was quiet. She didn't like attention. But she had a sense for truth. Rourke had seen her look at the same file. He knew she would notice what he did. He found her at the station. She was stacking papers. She looked up when he entered. Her eyes narrowed. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. Rourke didn't answer. He placed the file on her desk. She didn't open it immediately. She stared at it. Then at him. "What is this?" she asked. "Elias Moore," Rourke said. She opened the file. Her expression changed. Not shock, not fear. Something else. Recognition. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Rourke told her about the building, the room, the hum, the shadow, the man in the dark coat. Mara listened. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When he finished, she closed the file. She looked at him and said, "I've seen this before." Rourke stared. "What do you mean?" he asked. Mara didn't answer. She stood. She walked to the window. She looked out at the city. She said quietly, "There was a case like this years ago." Rourke's heart thumped. "Who?" he asked. Mara turned. She didn't meet his eyes. She said, "A woman." Rourke felt a chill. "A woman?" he repeated. Mara nodded. "She said the building was alive," she said. "She said it took her brother." Rourke stared. "What happened to her?" he asked. Mara hesitated. "She disappeared," she said. Rourke felt the words hit him. Not like a surprise, like a confirmation. The building wasn't new. It had been doing this for years. It had been feeding. It had been taking. Mara opened the file again. She flipped to the last page. There was a small note, written in the margin. Not in the same handwriting as the rest. Different ink, different style, but the same words. "The building is alive," Mara pointed at the note. "This was added later," she said. Rourke stared. "How do you know?" he asked. Mara's voice was calm. "The paper is different," she said. "The ink is different." She looked at him. "Someone wanted this to be found," she said. Rourke's stomach tightened. "Who?" he asked. Mara didn't answer. She just stared at the file, as if the answer was somewhere inside it. That night, Rourke returned to the boarding house. He wasn't sure why. He just knew he couldn't stop. He walked through the lobby. The air was heavier. The lights flickered. He went up to the third floor. The hallway was silent. The door to room 317 stood at the end. He approached. He felt the pressure again. The room wanted to keep him out, or keep him in. He reached for the handle. The door opened, slowly. No sound, no creak, just a smooth motion, as if the room had been waiting. He stepped inside. The air was colder. The hum was louder. The smell of salt was stronger. He walked to the corner. The shadow silhouette was still there, but now it was different. The shape had changed. The outline was